Welcome to Classes of Mail. Before you listen, you should know that Alan Gigax is not in any sense an official spokesman for the post office, the NALC, or anybody else. His opinions are inherently his own and should probably be disregarded. Same for his guests. Any information you hear on this podcast could be wrong and should not be relied upon for any reason. Enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Classes of Mail. My name is Alan Gigax and I am still alive. And I am here with Michael Brazenly.
Hi everyone.
And we are going to give you guys an update about my kidney cancer. So I am off work right now. I have been off work. Let's see, when are we recording this? February 25th. So I've been off work for 2.5 weeks at this point, something like that. 2 weeks, 2 days, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And I'm coming up on 2 weeks out from after my surgery. So I figured give you guys an update. I'm finally up to podcasting. And Michael has always been champing at the bit to come over and record some podcast episodes. So
no, I didn't. I left you alone for like 10 days.
You did leave me alone for quite a while. Yeah, that was nice. I wish I could say the same for Anthony, my co-host on the other podcast. That dude is relentless. And by the way, if you guys want to hear the full, uncensored, no holds barred version of this story, it will be released on the Scafacciverse podcast with a completely different tone to it. But anyway, this episode, we'll probably keep it fairly brief. I just want to give you guys an update, talk about how the surgery went, and that's about it. So, Michael, I don't know how much you'd be able to contribute this episode.
Feel
free to ask any questions or whatever to move the process along. So I had surgery like 13 days ago. And for those of you who haven't been keeping up, it was to remove a tumor, which is presumed to have been cancer that was in my kidney. It started out that I thought I had a kidney stone, went to the hospital, got it imaged, and it turns out, no, you don't have a stone, you have a tumor. And so that needed to come out, and the scans made it appear that it's kidney cancer, and that's one of the bad ones. It's one of the ones that spreads, and so it had to come out. Now, I don't have my pathology result. So, Michael, I've been getting emails the whole time I was in the hospital, like through my patient portal that says, hey, you have a new test result. And I'd go and I'd look at my blood work and it would be like, oh, your white blood cell count is high, whatever that stuff is. And then a couple days ago, maybe a week ago now, I got one that said, hey, I was at home. Hey, you have a pathology result in your patient portal. I'm like, hell yeah, that's what I want to see. And then I go to the patient portal and there's nothing in there. So my suspicion is that they don't release that information directly to the patient, that has to go through a doctor. But I don't know. I've checked it a few times and there's nothing in there. It says I have a pathology result, but it's blank. So I find that stuff out on Friday, 2 days from today, as we record it. And that's when I also find out when I can go back to work. So I had visions of how this would go. I knew that it was going to be, that it's not a small surgery, but it would be done by robots arthroscopically. And so I figured my recovery period would be really straightforward. But dude, I go in there, I get put under anesthesia, and then it's like the miracle of time travel. Instantly, I'm in the recovery room. And they're waking me up and they're telling me that the surgery went well, that the tumor was larger than they had seen on the imaging, which has to mean that it grew in like the 2 months that I was waiting for the surgery. So thank God they got it out. And that they managed to save 75% of my kidney, which is fantastic. Because the surgeon had originally said maybe 60%. And so it's got to be one of those things like under promise and over deliver. Because if the tumor was bigger than expected, how did I save more of my kidney? But whatever. So I'll take it. And I have not felt any ill effects. Like everything kidney wise seems to be processing normally. So that's cool.
You have to go to the bathroom a lot more?
No, same amount. No, that hasn't changed at all. Dude, I'll tell you that when I was in the hospital, like I normally have to pee more than the average person. And so I'm in the hospital, I get transported up to my room, and right away they ask me, do you want to walk from the hospital bed or the surgical bed into your hospital bed where I'm going to be for the next couple days? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I think I'll walk. What I didn't realize is that as part of the surgery that they did give all these like nerve blockers and stuff to make it not hurt so bad. And so I was feeling a lot better than I should have been feeling, as it turns out. And so it was very difficult. It was painful, but like, yeah, dude, right off the bat, I'm already clearing this major hurdle of recovery walking to my hospital bed. And I get in the hospital bed, and dude, getting into the hospital bed, now that was extremely difficult because even though it was robotic surgery, they had to puncture my abdominal wall like 4 or 5 different places. And so all those muscles are all jacked, you know? And so every time I have to engage my core for anything, like lifting my legs, it hurts so freaking bad. And I would come to find out very quickly that the things that you do that engage your core, pretty much everything, including breathing. And so I get into bed and I realize like my mouth is dry. I'm drinking a lot of water and I'm like, dude, I'm going to have to go to the bathroom a lot. How am I going to do this? So, well, I don't feel any urgency now. I'm just going to ignore it. And then later on that day, we go to take a walk and I'm like, dude, I still haven't had to go to the bathroom. What is going on? And that's when I saw the catheter bag that I didn't even realize that I had a catheter in. I'm like, oh, well, this is convenient at least. So, dude, good times. So anyway.
That means you were going and didn't even know.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, there was no urgency because nothing builds up. So that first day that I'm in the hospital, my wife comes back to the hospital and I had her bring my phone and my laptop. And my plan with the laptop is like, oh, I'm going to get some writing done. I'm going to do this creative work. I'm going to do all these things. And man, no chance. There was no way anything like that was going to happen because dude, the pain was so much worse than I was expecting. Like once the nerve blockers wore off and all I was on was like 5 milligrams of oxycodone or whatever it is, it was not sufficient. And I'm sleeping 10 minutes at a time if I'm lucky. And there was no way, like I couldn't even listen to podcasts because I was so out of it and in so much pain. So
they probably give you a minimal amount of painkillers.
Yeah, they did.
They don't want you to get addicted to it.
Yeah, and I don't want to be labeled like a drug seeker. And so I didn't want to ask for more pain meds. In hindsight, I probably should have. Because like once I got home, they gave me a prescription for a bunch of oxy something or other and muscle relaxers. And I think I've taken like 6 of them. And I don't think I've taken one in a week of the oxy. And I haven't taken any of the muscle relaxers. So any concern that I had about getting addicted, not an issue. And it sure would have been nice to have been less in pain those first couple of days. But anyway, so my wife comes and she brings me this stuff and then she hangs out for a while at the hospital. And at one point, like I have to try to sit up in bed because in the hospital bed, like it's at it's raised, the back is raised, but you slide down and you slide like out of the crack. And so I'm trying to raise myself back up into the hospital, into the crook. And dude, another thing that I haven't mentioned is they had to fill my abdomen with gas to like make room to work. And so they essentially like inflated my stomach like a balloon or the space. And that gas has nowhere to go. It can't, like you don't fart it out. It's just in there. And you have to like, that's one of the reasons they tell you to walk. They claim that it breaks up the gas, makes it easier for a body to reabsorb. But in the meantime, I just feel like I went to the buffet and I'm so stuffed full and bloated because I've got all this gas. And then every time I inhale, that gas and my diaphragm puts pressure on my abdomen, and I can't breathe. I can't take a full breath. I'm taking these really short, shallow breaths. And then, like, while my wife is there, I go to try to move in the bed, and it hurts like hell. And then that amount of time that I don't breathe gets me short of breath. And then she gets to watch as I go, dude, I hurt so goddamn bad. But, dude, I got through it. You know, the healing is going at or ahead of schedule. And so that's really encouraging. By the time I got home, I spent 2 nights in the hospital, got home, and the first night I had a bit of a hard time sleeping. I took pills that day, took pills the next day, like 2 pills each day. And then the next 2 days, like just 1 to go to sleep, and then no more pills since then. And dude, they gave me, because again, it's like the tearing of my abdominal wall. That's the big issue. And so they gave me an abdominal binder that it's like a girdle essentially. And man, that thing really helped. So all of this is to say that recovery seems to be going well. That as near as I can tell, everything is on schedule. I have 6 weeks of FMLA leave, and so far I've only used like 2.5, maybe 2.
You get all the sick leave for that, right?
Yeah, I have 12 weeks of sick leave banked. And so 6 weeks, if I use the whole 6 weeks, it'll take about half of it. But we'll see. We'll see what the doctor says when I go on Friday. So like if I go back on Monday, then I will have used 3 weeks of my sick leave. And I don't know, man. Like, I feel like I could go back to work.
But don't be in a hurry. You
Yeah,
got
right.
a walking route.
Dude, that's what everybody tells me. And like, so I'm able to walk around the block at home, you know? But dude, then I think about like, okay, if I do 2 trips around the block, that's like 2/3 of a mile. But my route is 10
walking all
miles.
day.
Yeah, it's 10 miles. That's a big difference. And I asked the doctors before I got discharged, like, what's the thing that's most likely to put me back in the hospital? How can I, fuck up my recovery? And the answer was straightforward: lifting. Lifting will pop your stitches. Lifting will undo what we've done. And I know at the post office, it's real easy to wind up lifting, even if you're trying to avoid it.
Your flats tray and...
Oh, dude, I didn't even think of... Oh, my God,
Yeah.
dude. Even a DPS tray, like, because my limit's 10 pounds. I don't know if I
DPS
could
is
lift the
probably more than
DPS
10
tray.
pounds.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
probably is. Oh, my God, dude. I didn't even think about that. See? Dude, this is the issue. And so I'll probably ask the doctor for, like, another week because I want to make sure that I get physically back in shape. I'll start doing a ton of walking this coming week. And then go back with like a lifting restriction for another week or 2 after that. So we'll see. And management at my station, I'm fortunate, like they've been fairly cooperative. They're reasonable human beings, which I know we don't have that everywhere, but we do have it at my station. So that's where we stand. And I'll tell you, dude, continuing the theme of the world's luckiest cancer patient, right now at my station, we're having route evaluations. And so I'm not there for that, but I've been getting reports of how the route evaluation is going. And so, for example, one of my buddies at the station, he has a park and loop route in the same neighborhood as mine. And his route one day was like 640 out on the street. And then after that was just street time. After all the deductions, that the person following it, they got him down to like 4.5 hours of street time. They took off like 2 hours of his street time.
But remember, we went through that.
We did. And I told him,
1840,
make sure that you get that paper that has like all the things to look for.
Where they cut that, yeah.
Right. Because one of the things, because they didn't show him that day, what the report was. But they talked about some of the things. And like one of the things was he had to come back to the station to pick up misthrown parcels.
So that's every day.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dude. And they took off like 32 minutes for that or whatever it was, or 28 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's every day.
Yeah.
We do that 4 or 5 days out of the 6-day delivery week. And so they're pulling those shenanigans. Like
Right.
that's such horse shit.
Right. So when they pull stuff like that,
Yeah.
They cannot use that,
Right.
And then if they do, that's a grievance.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So hopefully, dude, and we did not get an outside steward assigned to my station. So I don't know who's going to be filing all these grievances. My guess will be nobody,
Well,
but we'll see.
I mean, you can do it yourself.
Yeah, that's true. At least for my own route, I could do my own grievances. Because, dude, that's the question. Like with me not being there, what are they going to do for my times? What is your... Michael, let me ask you this. What should they do for my times, and what likely will they do?
Well, they're most likely they're going to pretend they're going to use a time that whoever
Of the
was on it for that week
CCA or whatever, right.
Okay.
The not qualified
yeah.
replacement.
For you, the whole crossing your fingers is to see who didn't know what they were doing, so that it took way longer than normal because when nobody knows the route, it takes a while.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Right. That would be nice if their times were even longer than mine. And that I know for sure that happens because it's a long route, with,
you don't know where you're going, so it should take longer.
Right. It's a little bit complicated until you get used to it. And the first two loops are both like 50 houses. And so it's definitely possible that they went over, which would be great.
Right.
But even then, they're not the qualified replacement because there's nobody who does my route on the regular.
If they try to cut your route or whatever and said, that doesn't work for me because this is not my time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep. So what I suspect will happen is that they won't necessarily use the CCA's overall time, like how many hours, 8.3 hours or whatever. But what they will use is their sector segment times. That if there's any segment that they did really quickly, like delivering to my business park, if they delivered the business park in 5 minutes because they didn't bother to go in any suites, they're going to say, oh, this business park is 5 minutes. And that's so typical of management, dude.
And here's the thing, too, is how did management figure out that it's only 4.5 hours in the street when they're supposed to do other things first?
That's a great question.
Because remember, they got to do consultation and they got to do all that stuff.
Of course. Well, it was just their time after all their disallowances that day.
Yeah, well, they're supposed to talk with the carrier where they think is the disallowances. Obviously, they didn't do that.
No, they only told him a little bit of it.
Yeah.
But not the whole thing.
Remember that list? It says they have to talk to you about it.
Well, isn't that in the consultation
Yes.
after the fact? Yeah, so that's still coming in the future. And I told him, you better make notes of all this stuff so that you're ready when you go into that consultation because that'll be without a steward, right?
Yeah. Right. So,
yeah.
Well, you can bring a steward if you want. Okay. But if it's 4.5 hours means they're going to add like an hour and a half, 2 hours to his route.
Yeah, dude, that's the concern. Right, exactly. And so it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out.
Yeah, so if you don't want to get hour and a half, 2 hours added to your route, you
better
make sure
speak
that
up.
management follows that rule that
Yeah.
that checklist that I
You're
put
right.
together.
Yeah, that is exactly right. So anyway, all of that lies ahead of us when I get back to the station, and I'll let you guys know how that process goes as well. But anyway, that's basically your update for my health conditions. And
Yeah, we
so
have to
far,
add
so
some
good.
training, instead of just the
yeah, that's true. Right. We got to do at least some educational portion. So there it was, right? We talked a little bit about route inspection.
Yeah.
All right. So that is all I have. So thank you guys very much for listening. And Michael, Michael is ready to go down there. All right. So that's it. Thank you guys very much for listening, and I will catch you all next time.